All right, everybody, here we are. It's that time of year we've all been looking for, Lent. Time to be miserable and 40 plus days of being hangry, except for that God send fish fry. Hey, I'm Father Mark Mary with the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, and this is Ascension Presents. I'm pumped about this video and just some new insights into Lent and what we're doing, and hopefully this will help us have like a crazy, fruitful Lent. I'm going to begin with this simple little principle. It's like this, it's called final cause, right? Like if you're going to do something, if you're going to work on some task, it's really helpful to know the end product, the end goal before you start. And it kind of gives you direction and clarity on how you're supposed to get there. Sometimes with Lent, we've kind of forgotten like what's the point? What are we trying to do? Where are we trying to get? And so along the journey, we're kind of doing funny things. We go to weddings somewhat regularly, and you see some dudes, sometimes friar dudes, on the dance floor, and they're just like flopping around, and you're like, okay, bro, yes, as with dance, there's movement. I love the zeal, I love the energy, I love the enthusiasm, but let's think about what we're trying to do. Like, we're trying to go with the music, let's chill out a little bit, we're just having a good time. Like sometimes if we don't know like what we're trying to do, what it's supposed to look like, we end up like spiritually like that dude on the dance floor who needs a little help. If he's wearing a habit, it's embarrassing because you can't be like, I'm not with that guy. So let's not be spiritual weird dancers this Lent. So Lent is this it's the spiritual journey into the desert. Traditionally, the desert or the wilderness, we'll use those synonymously. In the Judeo-Christian spiritual tradition, it's the place of betrothal between God and his people, and it's a place of spiritual battle. So let's look at the prophet Hosea. And this is Hosea chapter 2, first verse 14. Therefore, I will now allure her and bring her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. Fast forward to verse 19. And I will betroth myself to you forever. I will take you for my beloved in righteousness and in justice, in steadfast love and in mercy. I will take you for my betrothed in faithfulness, and you shall know the Lord. Right? We can feel that the desert and the wilderness, we can kind of get caught up in some of the discomfort and sort of the of it. But what's the point? What's the end? What's the final cause? Is intimacy and even the spousal relationship between God and his people. God wants to bring us into this place that's a little bit set apart so that he can speak tenderly to us, and so that he can enter into this profound spiritual but real intimacy and relationship, even to the level that we can call it spousal. And so he wants to take us into the desert so that he can provide for us, and he can care for us, and he can give us our daily bread, and he can lead us in the darkness, and he can reveal to us what our hearts are made for. He can reveal to us our strength, and he can do miracles for us. It's in this desert, and it's being separated and set apart from some of our own ideas, some of our own comforts, some of our own thoughts of what we should be doing when it's led by the Spirit. If you're taking like a long road trip with somebody, and if you don't, right, like if you don't turn on the music, it's just you and that person. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do. And so you end up having a conversation. And often, generally, like, this is a moment to kind of like, okay, like what's really going on? What's going on with your story? And the separation from the capacity to go other places, the separation from other noises, it facilitates this conversation, and it facilitates this deeper relationship and intimacy. And that's part one, and that's really the best part of what Lent is all about, growing in intimacy with the Lord. And so when we're thinking about spiritual practices or what we're going to do for this Lent, okay, we want to keep that in mind. But secondly, we can't forget there's an aspect of our Lenten practice and this Lenten journey which the church gives us, which is to do spiritual battle. Galatians chapter 6, verse 12, just a reminder of the battle that we're in. For our struggle is not against enemies of blood and flesh, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness. Again, now Romans chapter 12, verse 1. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, and I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Right? We're all familiar with some of these Lenten sacrifices, disciplines, whatever. I'm going to give up chocolate. I'm going to give up alcohol, things like that. But sometimes we kind of only understand them to the depth of like, okay, I'm going to do like a sacrifice and something kind of difficult for Lent. And if you don't understand the deeper value of it, you're much less likely to do it well or in a way which is fruitful. These little sacrifices that we make are spiritual sacrifices. And on the spiritual level, meaning often in a level which isn't going to be immediate obvious to us, we're not always going to be able to see the immediate results. Our sacrifices, if they're from God, for God, with God, they're going to bear fruit in the world, and they're going to open up space for grace to rain down amongst us. And we know we need some more of that. But secondly, I want to look at this, is like, there can be an objection to some of these disciplines and these practices, because like, well, why, okay, what's the point of giving up chocolate? Shouldn't you be giving up gossip? And shouldn't you be giving up selfishness? And shouldn't you be giving up spending too much time just in general? Why focus on this in Lent? And there's some truth to that. But I'll say this, is our Lenten practices, ultimately, they're going to be a growth in freedom. And it's going to be a growth in freedom to respond to God's grace, and a freedom to choose the good, even when it's not the easy. And I like the idea of like a basketball player. Like, okay, so a basketball player, during a basketball game, he's doing a certain number of moves. He's running the court, he's jumping, he's sliding side to side, playing defense. There's a relatively small combination of movements that he's making with his body, and a certain way in which they're done. And yet, a basketball player is going to go in the gym and he's going to do squats. He's going to do all of these other exercises, which aren't necessarily the same thing that he's going to be doing in the game, but they're strengthening the muscles which are necessary for him to exceed when the whistle blows and it's game time. And I think there's something similar to that with the Christian life. Game time is our day-to-day interactions, our day-to-day encounters with other people, our day-to-day experiences of things going well or not going well, of carving out time for prayer, things like that. And no, 100%, that's kind of what we want to grow in. But also, we want to grow the spiritual muscle, which allows us, again, to be generous, to be kind, to be patient, to be sacrificial in generosity when it's not easy, right? And so some of these Lenten practices, they allow us to work, if you will, the freedom muscle or the charity muscle or the discipline muscle, which we're going to need when it's game time. And so by strengthening this little aspect of our humanity with God's grace through him and ultimately for him so that he can more freely live his life in us, these little small things like sacrificing chocolate are spiritual worship. And so again, in summary, what we're looking for this Lent, and the point of Lent, is entering into intimacy with God and doing spiritual battle, particularly growing in freedom. I think you want to hit both of those. And so there's a ton of ways you can do that. There's a ton of ways in which you can create space to grow in intimacy and also do a little Lenten practice, a little bit of discipline, a little sacrifice to do a little spiritual battle. But I think somewhat of an ideal practice for most people is going to be setting the goal of waking up 10 or 15 minutes earlier each day during Lent, and getting an extra 10 or 15 minutes of prayer to start your day, right? Because there's 100%, it's going to be an act of the will, and it's going to be an act of discipline, and it's going to be tough, and it's going to be sacrificial, but also it's like not going to be glamorous, and sometimes you're going to fail. And it's going to be this opportunity to really kind of grow in self-knowledge and have a concrete way, be like, shoot, like, I'm not maybe as free to choose the good when it's difficult as I'd like. And it's going to be humbling. It's going to allow us to grow in self-knowledge. But also, I think we're going to have a lot of success with it. And it's such a great and ideal time to get prayer in that morning. So I just really think on the spiritual battle side of things, like that's an ideal place to do battle. And as we're, right, so it's waking up 10 or 15 minutes earlier. It's not getting 10 or 15 minutes less of sleep. And so it'll also help you like to look back at, okay, what am I doing at night? Am I staying up later than I need to? Just wasting time. And this little commitment of just waking up a couple minutes earlier, if you're good and you stick to it, it's going to lead you to kind of really reflect on your diet, on again, what you're doing at night. It's going to lead you to reflect a lot on your entire lifestyle. And the reason for it is to create extra space to pray. Probably what you want to do, if you're kind of a normal person, you can customize it, is you wake up 10 or 15 minutes earlier, more or less go through your own routine without noise, if you can do that. And then once you've had maybe a cup of coffee, cup of tea, a little bite to eat, whatever, taken a shower, woken up, now let's spend those 10 or 15 minutes before, if it's before the kids wake up, if it's before you have to go to work, you have to go to school, to get some prayer time. And I'd love for that prayer time to be like some real intimacy and real conversation with the Lord. It'd be great to maybe read a psalm. It'd be great to read the gospel of the day. But I want there to be some like, okay, Lord, I love you and I thank you for this day and I thank you for this opportunity to be with you and I trust that you're here with me and I trust that you want to speak with me. Here's what I have going on today, Lord. Okay, here's what I'm nervous about. Here's some of the relationships, some of the difficulties, some of the burdens. Lord, I need your help in these areas. Here's some of the people who I'm going to meet, who I want to bless, who I want to communicate grace to, who I want to reflect your love to. And here's some of the people also that like, they're going to be really difficult. I'm having this struggle with my coworker or my roommate. Lord, I need your grace. I need your spirit. I need you to go before me. I need you to soften my heart. I need you to give me your own love for this person and to really pray into these. And I think if we can develop this type of way of talking with the Lord to begin our day, goodness gracious, it sets us up for success. No one's going into a basketball game without a game plan, right? Like no one's going into a meeting, or they shouldn't be going into a meeting, right? Like without some idea, some preparation for the meeting. A priest shouldn't be going to give a homily or a talk without some preparation. But like we go about the spiritual battle and our spiritual lives and the spiritual game all the time without a game plan and without drinking our spiritual water or eating our spiritual food to start the day. And I think if we do this and develop this practice with this of entering into life with grace and with spirit and by being prayed up and being filled with that living water and the bread of life is going to change and life's going to be like radically beautiful. And the way in which you're able to respond to what life throws at you, it's going to be dramatically changed. And hopefully by practicing this faithfully for the entire Lenten season, you can get a taste for this quiet in the morning. And you can enter more into this sort of love relationship, this really deep intimacy and conversation with the Lord, which He so desperately wants and we so desperately need. My encouragement, my bottom line encouragement is for your Lenten practice to have something with intimacy with the Lord and some sort of act of discipline, which is reasonable and balanced, but which is understood in the context of being spiritual worship, which leads you to a greater freedom to respond and to be able to do the good when it's not easy with God's grace. This is good. This is good to me. It's a good reminder. We do a lot of Lenten stuff. I want to make sure I keep it contextualized in intimacy with the Lord and spiritual battle and doing some spiritual battle for this world. Let's do it, people. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Remember, we are pilgrims on this earth. Somos peregrinos poco a poco. Vamos a llegar. We're going to make it. Little shout out, Alec and Zoe. You're not going to watch this probably, but you'll watch it later. You're getting married tomorrow. I'm super pumped. Can't wait to be there with you. I might cry. I'm going to be super happy. It's been a long time coming. Love you both. Peace, everybody.